Hello, I'm Dr. Sheila Segerson, Director of Shelter Solutions at Maddie's Funds. Welcome to Maddie's Monthly Behavior Connection, a monthly webcast where we learn about topics of interest to those of us who are interested in animal behavior, whether it's providing support to keeping pets in homes or supporting pets while in shelter or foster care. Our guest today is Dot Baisly. Dot Baisly is the Executive Director for the International Association of Animal Behavior Consultants, or IAABC. She holds a master's degree in animal behavior from Tufts University, is a certified dog behavior consultant, certified cat behavior consultant, and certified shelter behavior specialist. That's a lot of initials and why you're so appropriate for today's talk. Her career has included work in animal shelters, work with service dogs, consulting with private clients, and work in veterinary clinics. So really broad experience. Dot specializes in working with dogs and cats exhibiting significant behavioral concerns, including human-directed aggression. She also provides consultations to shelters across the country where she has evaluated dogs, educated staff and volunteers, and continues to be recognized as a key leader in the animal welfare and shelter behavior community, where she is sought out for her expertise, compassion, and skill in leading efforts to change. Really excited to have her here today, where she will be talking to us about decoding behavior certifications. Welcome, Dot.
Thank you. All right, we'll get started. I will share my screen. Can everybody see the presentation?
Yes, that looks perfect.
Perfect. All right. So welcome and thank you for having me. I'm really excited. This is a topic I am somewhat passionate about. Behavior certifications. It is, alphabet soup out there. And there's tons and tons of letters. So hopefully we can learn a little bit about what those certifications mean and how to navigate the behavior and training field. So we'll get started. A little bit of background in this industry, right? Animal behavior and training is an unregulated profession. So there is absolutely no clear educational path. Folks approach me all of the time. How do I get to where you are? How do I do what you do? And everybody I know in this industry started out somewhere different, and their educational path has been very, very varied. There's also no clear career path. How do you get from a novice trainer to a trainer to a behavior consultant and all of those things? There's no one way to do that. And there's no clear way to do that. There's also the available education is extremely inconsistent. You can learn how to be a dog trainer in so many different ways with so many different varied theories and concepts that it really is extremely confusing, not only to the dog owning public, but shelters and rescues and people looking to hire professionals or to work with professionals. You don't really know what to look for in a professional. There's also extremely minimal business requirements. Typically, a business requirement is just the state or the county or the city that you live in. And there's zero requirements for licensure or certification to practice as a behavior professional. What that means is anybody can go into this profession, hang up a shingle and call themselves a dog trainer and charge you for their services. And what you're getting charged for may be amazing, or it may be actually extremely detrimental to you, your animal, and the relationship between you and your animal. So what I want to start with is thinking about what are some of the commonly used titles that people will call themselves or call other trainers, right? What is a dog trainer versus a behavior consultant, right? A dog trainer may or may not be certified. You also see a lot obedience or K9 trainer. I always am very cautious whenever I see the K-9 because that typically indicates a certain set of philosophies. But again, that has no indication of certification, right? Certified dog trainer probably means that they do hold some level of some certification, but it doesn't tell you what that certification represents, means about their practices, their approach, or the techniques that they are willing to use. A behavior consultant, a behavior consultant is what I refer to myself as, because I am a certified behavior consultant through the IAABC. Typically, behavior consultants work complex cases. We're dealing with aggression, anxiety, those types of issues. One of the most common labels that you hear, which makes a lot of us in the industry cringe, is behaviorist, right? That is technically somebody who holds a master's or a PhD and is certified through the Animal Behavior Society with a CAB or CAAB. That is in this country alone. That there's a different CAB certification in the UK. There's also the VTS, or the Veterinary Technician Specialist, which is a vet tech who is certified specifically in behavior. There's not a lot of them out there, but the ones that are out there are pretty amazing. So if you don't know any VTSs, go find them. They're awesome people. And then, of course, there's also the veterinary behaviorist, who is diplomated, a DVM that is diplomated. Means that they have taken extra certifications and extra boards to have the veterinary behaviorist label. They're more than a veterinarian, they're specialized veterinarian, and they're more than a veterinarian with an interest in behavior. And there's a lot of those out there as well. And they can be some amazing, amazing people, but they don't get to use the label of the diplomated label of VB, because they haven't passed that board certification yet. Sheila can tell you all about that at some point. It's a very challenging set of tests to pass. So there's also a lot of labels out there, not just what we call ourselves by what is it that we are labeling ourselves as professionally, but what are the words that you hear a lot when people talk about how they teach, or what their approach is to animal training and behavior, right? So you hear a lot about force-free or balanced, science-based, positive reinforcement-based, compulsion, and obedience. What do those things mean, really, right? And there's also a spectrum within each one of those labels, right? Force-free typically means that I am going to do everything I can to avoid using any type of aversive stimulus in my training and behavior interventions. Balanced trainer is somebody who's willing to use some level of aversive stimuli, but also will use food reinforcers or other types of reinforcement as well, play quite often. Science-based is a really tricky one these days, because everybody claims to be science-based, because a lot of people are interpreting the science the way they want to and not actually understanding what the science really actually says. Positive reinforcement typically means somebody who's going to use positive reinforcement as their first line intervention. And then there's probably some room for other things after that. Negative reinforcement, and going all the way down until you get into the use of punishment. Most positive reinforcement trainers are going to avoid that. Force-free trainers are definitely going to avoid that. Compulsion, that is sort of what I refer to as the traditional, old school, no food, no anything. You're just going to force the animal into doing something. I was actually explaining this to the shelter staff that I work with the other day about compulsion trainer teaching a down, where they put their foot on the leash, and then they pull the leash up, so the dog is forced to lay down as the leash comes up. And then the pressure on the leash is released once the dog is laying down. It's a really old technique, but you still see it being used sometimes. And then, of course, obedience training. You hear that a lot, and that is very much also I would say, a colored word, something that is, you have to be careful when you're looking at that. Most folks who are in the positive reinforcement or force-free community no longer refer to obedience as a thing. So they're just labels. We hear them all the time, but those are the things that we really want to start to pay attention to and understand what that might mean about the trainer or behavior consultant's approach to intervention and behavior change. So let's operationalize those labels a little bit, right? So traditional training methods, such as compulsion and obedience, and a lot of that it suppresses undesired behavior, right? So what you do is that when the dog is doing something or the animal is doing something that you do not like, you punish that and you talk about reducing that behavior. Whereas as balanced trainers are a combination of suppression and reinforcement, where they're going to use some of the sort of more traditional techniques, but then we'll also use reinforcement such as food or play to build behaviors that they like. And then positive reinforcement methods or force-free methods or science-based methods really focuses on rewarding desired behavior and replacing undesired behaviors. So instead of saying, no, don't do that, I want you to do this. This is how you win. Do this instead. And if anybody has any questions about where I lie, definitely in the bottom category there, I focus on rewarding desired behaviors and replacing undesired behaviors. So that's my bias, just as we walk forward. Behavior in training really is an art and a science, right? It is something that requires a lot of book knowledge, but it also requires the ability to gather hands-on skills. And so when we are learning and going through the process of developing those skills, we want to focus on how to implement that art and science into effective behavior change. There's a lot of controversy out there over what are humane, ethical, and effective methods for training and behavior change. You know, a few years ago, there was a certain gentleman on TV who definitely espoused what I would refer to as unethical and ineffective methods that were inhumane. So we want to start to really understand what that means and what we're looking for. I will mention that right now, the Joint Standards of Practice, which represents one of the only open consensus across organizations within the behavior and training world, which represents the International Association of Animal Behavior Consultants and the IAABC Foundation, Assistance Dogs International, or ADI, the American Pet Dog Trainer Association, APDT, the Certification Council for Pet Dog Trainers, Gracious Stewart Academy, and the Karen Pryor Academy. We are all signatories to the Joint Standards of Practice, which currently represents one of the only consensuses on standards of practice and approach to behavior and training. But again, my bias and what I truly, truly believe is that the scientific literature is clear. The use of aversive tools and interventions decreases the animal's welfare and the animal's well-being. And so we are advocates for those methods that do not intentionally employ the use of fear, intimidation, pain, or stress. So that brings us into the ethics of behavior and training. Each label, will have a variation in the level of aversive stimuli used. But your certifications, your associations, your memberships will give some level of indication on how that practitioner makes decisions on how and when to use tools, which tools to use, which techniques to use, and what other interventions they are to employ. So some examples, the sort of standards of practice or higher level intervention processes are the hierarchy of behavior change procedures, the hierarchy of dog needs, the ever so controversial Lima, and the more recently released publication on life. I'm going to go through a few of these, not all of them, but I want to start with the hierarchy of behavior change procedures, which most people commonly refer to as the humane hierarchy, coined by Susan Friedman, where we focus first on wellness, nutrition, and physical health before we do anything to intervene in the animal's behavior. So then we look at antecedent arrangements, which really means what we're looking to do is control and manage the environment so that we can control exposure to stressors and triggers and other types of stimuli. So can we address the behavior through a rearrangement of the animal's environment? Then we focus on the use of positive reinforcement. Then we move into differential reinforcement of alternative behaviors, which is a lot of fancy words for do this, not instead, reinforcing all of that. Then we get into extinction, negative reinforcement, and negative punishment. We only use these if everything else in the hierarchy above that has been fully exhausted. And then we move to positive punishment, which means adding a stimuli that is intended to decrease the likelihood of that behavior being repeated in the future, which typically is an aversive stimuli to the animal, which means that you are adding a stimulus that suppresses or stops or reduces the behavior. You can think of that in the shock collars, the choke chains, the pinch collars, yelling, screaming, throwing things. Those are all positive punishment. So where you fall in the spectrum as a practitioner, I fall in the never ever use positive punishment if intentionally. So that is one representation, the humane hierarchy, the hierarchy of behavioral change procedures, as Susan would prefer me to call it. What is one approach and methodology that a lot of the more force-free and reinforcement-based, science-based practitioners will refer to and employ as they address behavior. Another one is the least intrusive, minimally aversive, LEMA, which is a label and approach that IAABC and the Joint Standards of Practice have been relying on for a very long period of time. It was originally written by Stephen R. Lindsay, I believe in 2002, where it is competence-based, which means that to be a true LEMA practitioner, you have to be extremely competent in a bunch of different areas of behavior and change. This original version had no consideration for learner choice, which means allowing the animal to engage or make decisions or show the trainer what they prefer to do. It also overtly said that aversive procedures are necessary. Definitely disagree with that, but that's what it says. It defines training as a pathway to human and dog relationship and dog's quality of life. It has this really interesting name called synopraxis, which are synopractic approach to training. And there's no consideration for the dog's emotional state. And it really advocated for the use of the least amount of force possible to get the needed result. So that is what LEMA was originally published as back in 2002. About a decade later, the IAABC came along and said, this is a really cool concept. Can we make it a little bit better or a lot bit better? So we stuck with the competency-based approach. but it really focuses on the use of positive reinforcement and understanding the learner. You hear this from me every single time. People hear this from me all the time, because my staff sometimes rolls their eyes at me. Training and behavior is an N of one. You need to know your learner, right? So you have to understand what is appetitive, or what that animal likes, and what is aversive, or what that animal likes to avoid, right? So you have to understand your learner. It is a systematic problem solving and provides strategies with the help of the hierarchy to behavioral change procedures. That is the systematic approach that a Lima-based trainer should use. It prevents abuse by the avoidance of negative reinforcement, positive punishment, and negative punishment. And it really focuses on providing choice and control for the learner. So that is up until this year how IAABC has defined our practices and what we expect out of our practitioners, especially our certified practitioners. Dr. Eddie Fernandez published a paper called Life and pointed out the multiple interpretations of Lima. And so he is a proponent for the least inhibitive, functionally effective approach to training, which increases meaningful choices for the learner. All of those choices lead to through positive reinforcement, right? And identifying behavioral functions. Why is the animal doing this behavior? What is the function for the animal? If I identify that, then I can incorporate different plans and approaches to get the animal to behave differently to meet the same function, right? So if I am afraid of that person and I want them to go away, and I bark and bark and bark and bark at them, then as a practitioner, I can step in and identify that that person is scary. So how do I teach the dog other behaviors to increase that distance from that person and learn how to build trust with novel or unfamiliar humans? That goes through a lot of collecting of data based on observations and changing your plan and making sure that you're identifying what is functional. And then maximizing training success, which maximizes the animal's welfare. So effectiveness is only one component of success. Impact of the training on welfare is also important. We also want to consider other welfare impacts, such as the context of the behavior and the animal-human interactions. Training success includes positive welfare during and after training sessions. So he published that 2023 and sort of put a revolution into the dog training world. So that means that there are coming changes in a lot of the larger associations and certifying bodies, where we are updating the joint standards of practice, or the JSOP, which is those organizations with the consensus on what is humane and effective training methods. So you will see sometime in 2025, hopefully fairly soon, a release of an update on the standards of practice. You'll also see new standards of practice being released by the International Association of Animal Behavior Consultants, or the IAABC, who is also a member of the Joint Standards of Practice, but we will take the standard and elevate it for ourselves. And this is going to focus on welfare and well-being of the animal. And again, really focus on the intervention is as important as the outcome, which means the end in no way justifies the means when it comes to training and behavior change. So why do certifications matter? We take all of that background information and we look at that gobbledygook and we say, okay, what does that mean? Who do I look to? What do I look for? What as a practitioner, who do I associate with? Who do I join? Who do I support? Who do I not support? So certifications really do give the consumer or hiring manager a glimpse into the practitioner's methods and methodologies. But each organization has its own standards of practice, which includes ethics for most of those organizations. What is their ethical approach? It is still important to investigate the individual, the trainer, or if it's somebody that you're looking to mentor with, or if it's somebody you're looking to hire, or if it's somebody for yourself. What are you putting out as a practitioner in your social media, on your websites, all of that kind of information, because people will take a glance at a certification and make some assumptions, right? But it also shows a level of commitment to standards, right? Higher standards in the industry, which is desperately needed in an unregulated profession. And it helps build the public's trust so they understand, because there's so much conflicting information out there about how to address behavior problems, challenges, and training in your dogs, cats, horses, and birds, and any other companion animal you may have. And the certifications actually are something that will hopefully help the industry build towards regulation and licensure at some point in the distant, hopefully not too distant future. So there are multiple types of certifications. These are sort of some quick labels that we want to think about. Memberships really aren't a certification, but you will look at people's websites and they will tout their memberships as a certification. So you have to be careful when you're looking at that kind of information or presenting that information to the public, that you're not representing your memberships as a certification. There are also first-party certifications, second-party, and third-party certifications. And we are going to go through each one of those now, starting with memberships. And sorry, I always have to slip in a photo of my dogs in every presentation I do. So you get to stare at Pork Chop and Angus being ever so lovingly cute. Membership really means that you belong to an organization or an association, right? And so some associations, such as APDT, the Association of Pet Dog Trainers, they do not offer any level of certification. They do have different levels of membership, but that is not a certification. They focus on education and providing education to the dog training community. IAABC, my organization, has both supporting and certified members. So we have members that are not certified through IAABC. So if somebody is a member, they have signed on to our code of ethics and our standards of practice, but they haven't been tested to show their level of knowledge and skill yet. They may have other certifications and still be a supporting member. And the International Association of Canine Professionals, the IACP, also has supporting and certified members. I've spent a bit of time trying to figure out how they have certified members, and I can't quite figure out what their certification process is. So I'm going to say that they probably have first or second party certifications for their certified members. And then there's the National Association of Dog Obedience Instructors, or NADOI, which also has supporting and certified members. And again, I couldn't quite, and I asked some previous members what their certification process is, and wasn't able to really narrow that down too well. So you just want to make sure, the point here is making sure that we don't equate membership in an organization with a credential or a certification. So then we want to look at first party certifications, which really means that it's a completion of a seminar, course, or other learning opportunity, and you get a certificate at the end saying that you learned this information. There's no testing of your skills and knowledge. They're not very common, but I do see quite often folks on their websites or in their social media say, oh, I achieved a certification this weekend by attending this webinar. And it's not actually a certification, it is attendance and a certificate of completion, really. Not very common, but you do see it. Then there are second party certifications. These are probably the most prolific within the industry. And this is where we get into the really deep alphabet soup, right? Because we have multiple schools that will teach you how to become a dog trainer or behavior consultant. And so you have the Karen Pryor Academy. When you finish the Karen Pryor Academy, they test you on what they've taught you, and then you become a CTP, or a certified training partner. You can also do the family dog mediation through Kim Brophy's program, LEGS. So the program itself has initials. And then you're an LFDM, which is a licensed family dog mediator. So you go through their program, and at the end, they test you on the knowledge that they have provided to you. You also have the Animal Behavior College, an ABCTD, which is Animal Behavior College's certified dog trainer. Catch, which is another CDT. So if you finish the Catch program, you get those initials after your name. The Victoria Stilwell, the Academy for Dog Training, which I believe is the Gene Donaldson, typically referred to as the Gene Donaldson Academy. Pat Miller School, and then of course the International Association of Canine Professionals, which is also a CDT. The quality depends not only on the knowledge acquired, but the hands-on skill honed, typically through mentorship. And I can tell you the mentorship is really the important part. Of all of these programs, I think I've had staff and or mentees that went through most of them, except for the IAABC, the International Association of Canine Professionals. I have had a volunteer who was on their staff actually at one point. And what I would consider some of the lower levels knowledge, one of my greatest staff members ever went through one of what I would consider to be one of the lower level schools, and she's amazing, but that really is because she lucked out on a really great mentor through that program, and her mentor taught her a lot, and then she came to me and she continued to learn, right? That is the important part to understand, is that we are always learning even after we're certified. So then there's also a bunch of specialized topics certifications, which most often are also second party certifications. So if you can join a Grisha Stewart Academy and learn how to do the behavioral adjustment training, or BAT, through her program, and at the end you get tested and you become a CBATI-KA, which is a certified BAT instructor knowledge assessed. So you'll see a lot of folks with that out there. Another one, which is an amazing program, Melina DeMartini's CSAT, which is a certified separation anxiety trainer. That's actually one I haven't achieved yet, but I plan to as soon as I have a moment in my life, because I do work with a lot of separation anxiety cases, particularly in cats. So I do want to get that that is the one certification I don't have that I want. There's also the Certified Control Unleashed instructor, the CCUI. That's another one that's some really great stuff. They're the bucket games and lattes, and there's all of these really great creative approaches to behavior change that you can learn through the Control Unleashed program. And they're pretty awesome, actually. And you can apply them across species. They're not just for dogs. I've seen Control Unleashed instructors working with cats and horses and all of that stuff. So Really, really, really powerful stuff. Then there's the National Association of Obedience Instructors. You can get a NADOI certification. If you look at their website, the first thing that is on their website is that they do not restrict the use of any tools or techniques or approaches. And the word obedience indicates to us that they're looking for compliance from the animal. So that is one that I would be very cautious of myself. And then there's also the fear-free animal trainer, or the FCP, which is fear-free certified professional. They have multiple types of certifications, but they do have certifications specifically for dog trainers. Then there's the low stress handling, which is something that I work a lot with, and they have multiple certifications available depending on your approach. Are you the trainer? Are you the medical staff? That kind of stuff. So low stress handling is designed to work for animals in a medical setting, but has different applications as well. And then you can get the CGC, or the Canine Good Citizen Evaluator, through the AKC. And then there's the Canine Nosework Instructors. Fun stuff. Love that stuff. So much fun. And then you also can be a AKC certified agility trainer as well. So all sorts of letters around very specific techniques, approaches, and or methodologies right there. So that wraps up on second-party certifications. We'll move to third-party certifications, which is independent testing of knowledge and skills. What this means is that they do not provide the education to the professional. Similar to other industries like vet techs or veterinarians and or lawyers or doctors, right? When you finish your schooling, you go to an independent body that then tests your skills and knowledge, and that you are then certified in that particular area of the profession. So there are the two most common available dog trainer and behavior consultant certifications out there are the International Association of Animal Behavior Consultants and the Certification Council for Pet Dog Trainers, both of which have dog trainer and dog behavior consultant certifications. So that brings us to, what is the difference between a dog trainer and a behavior consultant? Trainers focus on developing new skills, so foundational skills, what is maybe traditionally called obedience, but we now refer to as cues: sit, down, stay, touch, look, all of those good, excessively important things. Quite often they also are sports trainers, so you get the nose work, the scent work, the agility, the fly ball, there's no end to the dog sports out there. And I personally use dog sports in my aggression treatment plans all the time, and I don't teach sports, so I quite often am referring my clients out to a good agility instructor or a good nose work instructor or something else, depending on the dog's needs. And they also focus on socialization of younger animals, which is critical. I am one for always saying, you do not give the puppy kitten kindergartens to the brand new trainer. The trainers who've been around doing this for a long time, who understand body language, who can identify behavior concerns before they blow up, those are the talented people who need to be working with your puppies and kittens and foals, I guess, and horses, the babies. Not a horse consultant. And then behavior consultants focus on changing emotional responses, right? So we're getting into the behavior modification and really addressing things like aggression, fear, anxiety, and phobias. So getting into the complicated, more higher level, risky stuff sometimes as well. I am famous for saying every animal needs enrichment. Some animals need training. all training is enrichment, but not all enrichment is training. And fewer animals need behavior modification. All behavior modification is training, but not all training is behavior modification. So as a really good behavior consultant, you need to understand the difference between those three things and how to employ them in your intervention plans. So we'll start with the CCPDT and their certifications that they have available. They have a certification that was the first certification I ever achieved in this industry, which is the CPDT-KA, or Certified Pet Dog Trainer Knowledge Assessed. I got that certification well before they offered any other certifications. They now have the KSA, which is Knowledge and Skills Assessed. And then they also have the Certified Behavior Consultant Canine Knowledge Assessed available. So those are 3 different certifications that you can get through the Certification Council for Pet Dog Trainers, and which are one of the few third-party certifications. So they do not provide you with any of the education. They provide you with the assessment of your skills or your knowledge, and in one case, skills as well. So their exams are all multiple choice exams. The KSA, or the Knowledge and Skills Assessed exam, also includes video submission. So that's how they assess your skills, is by watching you train animals in videos. Their tests are completed through testing centers, and there's typically, I believe, 2 testing windows per year where you can sit for their exam and achieve one of those 3 certifications. The other third-party credential that we're going to talk about today is those offered by the International Association of Animal Behavior Consultants, or IAABC. The IAABC is international. It's in the name, which means that our exams are available anywhere in the world. If you have the internet, you can take our exams, and some of our exams are also multilingual and available in English and Spanish. We are also one of the few organizations that represents other species outside of dog. So you can work with dog, cat, horse, and parrot. And we are the only available shelter behavior certifications on the market. And we have multiple membership types. We have student membership, we have supporting membership, we have certified and organizational memberships available as well. So what does it take to become certified through the IAABC? First is you have to get to know our core competencies, which means you have to understand assessment skill. You have to be very good at assessing an animal's behavior. One of the things I added here is the critical thinking part of this. How do you critically think through a problem and help an animal and its caregivers achieve better? You also have to have knowledge and ability to apply learning theory. So a lot of those words that we threw around earlier, positive reinforcement, positive punishment, that's all learning theory, right? You also have to have specific knowledge about your species, understand the development, the growth, and developmental stages of your species. You also have to be very good at consulting skills. What are consulting skills? Really, that is adult education. You have to be able to teach other humans how to intervene with their animals. And then, of course, you have to have a deep knowledge of animal behavior. That's a lot of the like applied behavior analysis, ABA, and other types of psychology and things that apply to animal behavior. There's also the biological sciences as that pertains to animal behavior. And then, of course, our ethics, which is available on our website, long and deep read for you. But these are the core competencies that we look for and test for in our certifications. So if you don't have all of these skills and sets, then you may not be ready for the certification process yet. So when it comes to experience, we suggest certain levels of experience. So for our trainer certification, we suggest 2 years of experience training dogs and about 100 hours of education. For the behavior consultant, it's 4 years and 500 hours of experience and 400 hours of education, which includes hands-on mentorships. Again, this is suggested. We don't check for that. So if you pass and you don't have that, good for you. Our testing is available at any time, anywhere across the world. You open an exam, you have 60 days to write that exam. We are very, very sticklers for the plagiarism policy, which also includes AI. If you plagiarize or use artificial intelligence to write your exam, you will not pass our exams. The exams include endorsements. So you have to get 3 endorsements from other folks, depending on the certification itself will dictate what those endorsements are. Definitions is a section. Scenarios. We give you, this animal is presenting with this problem, what would you do? And then case studies. You have to submit case studies that you have worked through completion to success and a successful outcome. Once you finish your exam, it then goes through a scoring process. You have to score 80% or above in all sections in order to pass. If you get a 75 in one section and a 90 in another, it doesn't average out. You have to get 80% in all sections. It is blind scoring by at least 2 scorers per application. And we also check for adherence to our ethics and standards of practice. If you don't meet our ethics and standards of practice, then you don't pass our exams. And then maintaining their certifications. Once you are certified, every 3 years, you are required 36 continuing education units to show that you are continuing your education in the behavior and training field. So the certifications that are available through IAABC are trainer certification or accredited dog trainer, IAABC-ADT, also available in Spanish. And then we have our certified consultant certifications, dog, cat, parrot, and equine. So you see all those letters there, more letters to throw into the game. Then every once in a while, you'll see somebody who has a CABC, which represents passing at least 3, if not 4 of those other exams, dog, cat, parrot, and equine. And then we also have certified shelter dog and certified shelter cat certifications. So shelter specific certifications is the Shelter Behavior Associate, which is a great entry-level shelter certification for anybody looking to be certified in sheltering. This Certified Shelter Behavior Specialist Dog, CSB-D, or Certified Specialist Cat. And for those few of us out there in this world who are CSBSs, which means that we are Certified Behavior Specialists for dog and cat. So you've taken both of those exams and passed them with a score of 80% or more in every section, then you get to be a CSBS. And we're getting more, but there's lots out there. So how do shelters benefit from certified behavior professionals? Behavior touches all aspects of shelter care, right? At intake with the volunteers, staff onboarding and training, the veterinary care, every part of an animal stay in a shelter is the behavior program. The behavior professional has some level of skill and knowledge to add to their stay, to improve their outcomes, and to get them to a positive outcome. Positive reinforcement works with people too. Behavior change in interactions with humans. I do lots and lots and lots of trainings for shelters on how do you use positive reinforcement with your people. It's important because they don't pay us a lot, so they got to find other ways to keep us around. And IAABC certified professionals have demonstrated knowledge and skill in all aspects of an animal shelter stay. So if you have a CSB-D or a CSB-C, that is somebody who has demonstrated the skills and knowledge to not only work in a shelter as a behavior professional, but to really lead a behavior program from soup to nuts, intake to post-adoption support. So the take homes for today is that practitioners will all have a very varied educational background. There's no requirements to be certified to practice in the behavior and training field. Qualified professionals have a variety of backgrounds and focuses. So you have to, as a hiring manager or a dog owner, understand the ethics of your practitioner. Look into it. Understand what they are willing to use or what they are going to use as tools, techniques, and interventions for you and your animal or the animals in your care. Finding the right certification for you, where you are in your career. How do you navigate that if you want to be or you are a practicing behavior professional, and find the right professionals for you or your organization. And it's that I will show you Pork Chop, who always wants to know if you have any questions.
All right. Thank you so much, Dot. This was just an absolutely amazing presentation. I know I'm going to be sharing it so often, and Pork Chop is just the cutest dog ever.
Yes, she is.
So we have a number of questions, and we'll get started with the first one. Excuse me. And that is, can you expand on specific research regarding the scientific literature and aversives?
There's a lot out there. What I typically ask of folks when they're referencing scientific literature is to say, okay, what is the focus of the research? What are they looking at, right? If they're not looking at the animal's welfare in the research, they're not looking at the animal's well-being. There is a somewhat sort of famous study that was recently published that said that, you know, shock collars were more effective than positive reinforcement in this methodology. If you go through that, what are they focused? Are they looking at the welfare of the animal? In the training intervention, they're not at all. There's also a lot to be said for their scientific method and the representation of actual positive reinforcement. They didn't apply positive reinforcement. So when you get deep into the literature, you look at the literature that actually looks at what is supporting an animal's welfare, what is supporting an animal's well-being. When using punishment, when using anything that causes fear, stress, or anxiety, that has fallout. It may effectively change the behavior, but it does not support the animal's well-being and help them become more confident, trust in humans, trust in their environment, and you will end up with poisoned cues. You'll end up with all sorts of things. I mean, I have a dog in the shelter right now. You tell him down, he growls at you. My best guess is he learned down in a very not positive way. And that may contribute to his inability to be adopted.
Thank you. Very good answer to that question. I did add a list of references to the chat. So who's interested. Next question is, does understanding the learner, and I feel like you answered this somewhat, but and Denise raised her hand, so it sounds like she wants to ask that question live. Denise, we will unmute you so you can ask that question live. Just a second while we do that. Okay, Denise, you should be able to talk. Are you there, Denise? We cannot hear you. Well, I guess I'll ask that question. You can start asking it, and maybe Denise, you can clarify in chat, or if you can start talking, great. And so this question is, does understanding the learner include understanding the animal's emotional state?
Yes. it is understanding their emotional state, their responses, reading their body language and interpreting what that body language indicates as to what is appetitive or what is aversive to that individual.
Thank you.
So hopefully that answers that question.
Hopefully so, Denise. And if, sorry, we can't hear you, but if you have anything else on that, please enter it in the chat. And Denise also asked, there's a lot of appreciation for your comments about when you started talking about all animals need enrichment. It sounds like it's something that you say very often.
Frequently,
so
yes.
You went a little quickly through it. Can you say that again a little more slowly?
Oh yeah, sorry. I wasn't intending to actually put that into this talk, but it's just something that falls out of my mouth whenever I'm talking. All animals need enrichment. Some animals need training. Most animals need training, right? All training is enriching and enrichment, but not all enrichment is training, right? A few animals need behavior modification, less animals need behavior modification, right? All behavior modification is training, but not all training is behavior modification, right? So if I'm teaching a new skill like sit or look or touch, that's training. That's not behavior modification. But when I use that look or I use that touch to help refocus the animal during an event that is somewhat stressful, then I'm applying it to a behavior modification technique, right? If I'm using it during my desensitization protocols, then that training now becomes behavior modification.
Great. Thank you. I just love how you describe that. That's wonderful. All right. Next is a more practical question, and that is, are there practice exams for IAABC certifications?
Not yet. We're working on that. We're thinking about it, how to implement that, but how to score it, right? Because we do not offer a multiple choice exam. So therefore, what we ask is a lot of written word and a lot of your experience, which really does demonstrate your skills. So how to do that in practice without giving away exactly what's on our exam is a process that we're looking into currently.
All right. Next question, I think, is one that everybody struggle. Well, not everybody. A lot of us struggle with, and it is this: how do we get this message out to the public? I work for a rescue, and we only use R+ certified trainers, but our fosters are always asking for people that are popular but use aversives on all dogs or recommending them to each other. I explain one-on-one why we don't partner with them, but I guess I'm looking for a nice way to promote fear-free training without bad-mouthing specific trainers or the people that use them.
And IAABC and Melinda, who's in the chat, I can see her talking as my director of strategy. We focus on the same approach with humans as we do with animals. What do I want you to do? What can I reinforce in you? What can I tell you is the right way? So we talk about a lot of what does fear do? What does stress do, right? If you've ever lived through a heavily stressful or heavily traumatic event, what was the result on your body, your emotional state, all of that? If you can understand it from a personal level, then you don't really need to focus on the negatives. Right? You can just say, this is why we do what we do, and this is why we believe what we believe and what we know to be true. And then somebody comes along and says, oh, do you use Jerome down the street, right? And I say, no, I don't, but this is what I do, right? So I don't focus on what he does wrong. I focus on what I want out of my trainers. And I live now, I recently moved to Maryland, and I live in an area where I do not see a whole lot of positive reinforcement trainers. And my neighbors all have their dogs on shock collar, prong collar, like all of the equipment that I just don't want to see in my world. And so instead of saying, oh, you shouldn't do that with your dog, I just walk my dogs with treats, and I have a leash reactive mini pit, and she walks down the street staring at mommy. Where's the cookies? Where's the cookies? Right past that dog on the shock collar, right? So I just demonstrate the power of positive reinforcement through my dogs and not focusing on how everybody's doing it wrong. So
Thank you
hopefully
so much.
that answers that question a little bit.
Yeah, I just think that's so important. And there's so much negativity between different methods, and it's so important to practice what we preach. And so thank you for that answer. We are at the top of the hour already, and I just want to be thankful to everybody who needs to leave. Thank you for joining us. We are going to try to get to all of the questions, so if you do want to hang on, please do. Otherwise, you can listen to the recording for the rest of them. All right, next one is, do the shelter slides and certifications also apply to fosters? I've been fostering for a year and might be interested in some basic certifications to help the diverse needs of the different learner. But I also work full-time in an unrelated job.
So our CSB, D, and C certifications demonstrate skill and knowledge throughout the entirety of an animal stay in a shelter. So I'd say as a foster, probably not the right certification. What I would look for maybe is the SBA, which is the Shelter Behavior Affiliate, or the dog trainer, the ADT, because really being in a foster home, that's a little bit closer to working with owned dogs, and it doesn't necessarily address how do you do an intake exam for an animal who's coming in who has an aggression history, or how do you work with defensive handling for animals that are aggressing at you in a shelter environment, and other things that are involved in those certifications.
Great, thank you. Next question is whether there are scholarships for IAABC for shelter volunteers.
We have our membership dues. We have equitable pricing for certain areas of the world. We have membership assistance funds. We have student memberships, which is a discounted membership, but we don't have any type of scholarship at this point, because scholarships really more are towards education, right? So we leave that to the folks over at the IAABC Foundation, which is our sister organization that provides education.
Great, thank you. Thank you. I think this might be the last question unless we get any more. And this question is a really good one. Is there a mentor to help a dog trainer choose the certification course for them?
A mentor. I think that unfortunately it really is so unregulated and so just almost a free-for-all that, like, you have to find the folks in this industry, the organizations, the memberships, and the mentors that you align with and can learn with. It can be a challenge. I mean, when I started more than 20 years ago, like, I happened to luck out because the shelter I worked at hired a veterinary behaviorist, right? And I also had a really, really messed up dog, right? He was a medical and behavioral nightmare. So I teamed up with the veterinary behaviorist to address my own dog's concerns, and then learned a lot. I just happened to luck into that. And finding that can be a huge challenge. And that wasn't my first, that was my first mentor, but then through that, I then met another mentor who I refer to as the one who taught me how to be a good dog trainer, because she taught me how to work with humans. and how to be a compassionate person, an empathetic person when working with humans. And then, I mean, I went through probably 6 different mentors before I became a mentor myself. So it can be it can be hard. But
Thanks. Go ahead.
that's why membership in some organizations, especially IAABC, you get that community, you build that community, and then you have access to more people who can help mentor you and help build your skills.
Thanks. And yeah, that's what I was going to add, is that I'd recommend you just reach out to people who seem like people you'd like to ask, what should I do? I have people reaching out to me all the time, Dot. I'm sure you do as well. And find out because everybody is different and has different needs. So talking to people, and it may be someone you've never met before, still reach out to them. Because those of us who love behavior love to talk about it. And don't reach out to just one person, because you might reach out to me and I happen to be someone who doesn't know what I'm talking about at all, and I'm recommending horrible things. So make sure you're reaching out to multiple people.
Yeah, and I mean, even where I am now, like, I'm new to the area, so I straight up cold called anybody on the internet that was a dog trainer that indicated that they are positive reinforcement. And I was like, let's be friends, let's hang out. How do we build community? How do you, like, I am not taking a lot of cases, so who do I refer to? Who do I send the shelter adoptees to? That kind of stuff. So it can be daunting. But you have to be a people person to be successful in this industry.
For sure. All right. I think oh gosh, we might have, okay. Is in the certification process, is there any teaching on genetics, biology, and how the canine evolved from the wolf? And also, do you identify ancient breeds?
So there, in the certification process, there is some questions around developmental stages and addressing those kinds of things. But as far as like the stuff that I like to really dork out on, because I have a degree in evolutionary biology, I just go back and read Ray Coppenger's book once every 3 years. And awesome. Be like, listen to anything that Catherine Lord has to say, like, hang out with those people and listen and learn that kind of stuff. But is it heavily involved in the certification process? No.
All right, thank you. And we were almost done, but then we had a couple ones come in at the last minute. What was the IAABC shelter cat certification? What was that one called?
Oh, that's a CSB-C.
Thank you. Where would the best education come from to pass the exam? So where should people go to study?
One of the better courses out there is offered by our sister organization, the Principles in Practice. It's Principles in Practice courses. It's a deep dive into some really, really, really good stuff. Again, the education is unregulated. It is very jumbled. So, meet trainers, get to know trainers, understand, learn where they received their education, and if it was good quality or not, and go from there. Because there are plenty of, I like to refer to my education, at least starting out, was trial by fire. It was like, I'm in the shelter and I gotta learn this stuff right quick. So that was, there are, and to Kim's point there are more books on dog training out there than you can imagine. And not all of them are good.
But the IAABC does have a reading list that I share quite
recommended frequently. Reading list.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Recommended reading list, which is a lot of books There's a ton, and we've updated it recently, so there's even more books on it now. And they have what I requested of my team when we were compiling that list is to look at each one of our core competencies. So consulting skills, what books are out there that are quality, that we have reviewed, that we have read, that fit that core competency. I hate to say it, in the consulting skills area, there ain't a whole lot of books out there. But Reese Von Fleet's book is top notch.
Thank you. All right. Finally, the last question. Thank you, Dot, for staying so long, and thank you, everyone, for hanging with us. Is there a respected certification course or title in the industry amongst trainers, respected by the quality of knowledge provided? There's so many, it's been hard to choose and put the funds and invest in the right one.
Right. There's, I mean, for a, force-free positive reinforcement based program, there are a few out there. Some are better than others. What you really, really need to do is your research, right? Where are you starting? Number one, if you're starting out from scratch, then Catch or ABC or some of those online courses are a great place to start, right? And I mean, I've like my last shelter, my coordinator went through one of those online schools, and I was her mentor, and she is amazing. She's great, amazing trainer now. But I mean, I think I was her second mentor. Now she's on to her third. So I think that really goes to the fact that there's so much to know and so much to do to become a really qualified behavior consultant, that it is a long journey. So you have to find ways to build those building blocks along the way, right? So you don't say, okay, I'm going to become a veterinary behaviorist. First, I got to get an undergraduate degree. Then I got to go to vet school. Then I got to do externships, internships. Then I got to pass my boards, right? So, but you're working all of that way and developing those skills and that. So, I know plenty of amazing dog trainers who are like, I was going to go to vet school and I stopped here because this is my sweet spot and this is where I'm happy, right? So it's a part of just sort of discovery, and it is a process and can be a long process.
Wonderful. Great answer to end things. Thank you so much, Dot.
Thank you.
And thanks to everyone for watching today's webcast.